So hi everybody, it's 8 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, thank you Alex, Norm, Amy, hi Amy, I haven't talked to you in a long time, Bess, and then my dad George, and I'm assuming my mom Martha's on the line. So hi everybody, and welcome to the first of 3 webinars based on my new book called Create the Life of Your Dreams. This webinar is entitled How to Say No When No is Impossible to Say. I'm sure none of us know what that's like, but we'll talk about it anyway. As you can probably tell, my friend and producer of this webinar, Mike, say hi, Mike.
Hi. Oh, hi.
There's Mike. This is our first time using this system and doing a webinar together. So I'm sure there will be some bumps along the way, but that's what makes life more enjoyable, right? So the first thing I want to check is to see if I can hear everybody. On the right side of your screen, which I think is that way for you guys, maybe it's that way, you should be able to hit unmute or mute so that we can hear you. So if you can test that, that would be awesome. I want to know if people can talk. I'm hoping you can. Is that possible? Can we allow people to talk?
Yeah, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's possible or not. I know it says chat unmuted, but it may just be text chat rather than voice chat. I'm not sure though. Okay.
Well, we may be doing then chat. So I'm hoping everyone knows how to use chat. It's on the right hand side of your screen. Just type a message in, then hit enter, and I will be able to see it. And Mike will be able to see it if I don't. So, and we will get to you. So, okay. Well, I'm not sure. I think most people know who I am, but I am an author, speaker, life coach, and leadership coach. I'm based here in Chicago, Illinois, which is beautiful. I'm looking at the lake right now. We finally have great weather here. And then Mike, he's based in LA, so it's a little interesting to be doing something like this with someone who's not even in the same state as I am. So, but that's the cool thing about technology, right? So, so as I said, this is the first webinar of 3. And just to let you know, we are recording this webinar tonight, and I thought you were going to be able to speak, which I guess you're not going to be able to speak, which I'm kind of bummed about. But I will be using your questions, and which some people emailed me questions, which I'll get to in a little bit. But also as we chat, I may be using your name, etc. So at the end of this, if you prefer us not to say your name in the recording, just let us know. Not a big deal. We can cut it out, and life will be good. So I think that is it. I actually want to kind of get going with a question. I want to know, how is the inability to say no affecting your life? And specifically, is it affecting your relationships? Is it affecting your job, your family, your ability to have fun yourself? What is what is affecting your life by not saying no? If you can type it in so I can see, that would be great. Maybe. Ding. I hope everyone, hopefully I can see everybody. Okay. So one person says too many commitments. Too many commitments. That's affecting your life. Okay. So self-care. Oh, by not being thanks, Alex. By not being able to say no, self-care. I can relate to that one big time. Who else? Who else? Anybody else want to chime in here? Jump in. It's a very interactive presentation. I can relate to both of those. So I'm actually going to pop to my PowerPoint, so you won't see me, you'll see my PowerPoint, but I will keep talking. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. Let me see how to do this. Great. So this is the deal. Well, what is the big deal with saying yes when we should say no? And the issue becomes that saying yes when we should say no, well, it creates a lot of stress. Example is when yes means overcommitting ourselves. I think that one person mentioned that by overcommitting ourselves. Consequently, sometimes the quality goes down in everything we're doing just because we're doing so much. And saying no is actually an opportunity for our quality to go up. So we provide better quality by limiting the quantity. And then those people we say no to, well, actually, we both win. And how is that? I mean, really? We both win? Well, actually, when you say no, you lower your stress. So you're winning by that. And the other prior commitments that you have are getting 100% of you. On the other side of that, the person you've said no to is actually winning because by you saying no, you are allowing someone else to say yes. And that person can give 100% to that person. So why do we say yes when we want to say no? Why do we do that? Well, a lot of times it's because we don't want to disappoint someone. Or let me rephrase that. It's because I don't want to disappoint someone. Also, I don't want to appear selfish in not helping. I actually do a lot of volunteer work for one organization. And when they ask me to do more work, it's always in the vein of I'm helping the people that this organization helps. And if I say no, then I'm not helping them. And then I always think, well, can I be that selfish? And the answer is sometimes that by being selfish, I'm helping both of us. The other thing too is that, and I do this, is that I will say yes because I don't want to burden someone else. I think, well, you know what, I'll just do it. The last thing is that it's part of an ego thing, at least for me, that I'm so good, that I want to be able to say yes to everything. And I feel that when I say no, that maybe I'm looked at as not good enough or not doing the best I can. The other thing too is, I know I said that was the last one, but one other thing that just popped in my head is sometimes we say yes when we're not really sure. We're actually a maybe. So I guess let me ask you this question. What is the hardest part for you about saying no? So I need to go back to the chat real quickly. You in saying no. And actually, someone popped in before and said that if they say yes too often, that it causes frustration. And I agree to that wholeheartedly. So what is the hardest part about saying no? What is the hardest part to saying no? What are your thoughts about that? So someone just popped in and said, feeling like I'm letting someone down. I can totally relate to that. Afraid I'll hurt someone's feeling. And don't want to let people down. So actually, I have a question. Sorry, that was from Mike. He popped in, and I think he was trying to do a poll. We earlier had set up these polls, and they didn't work, so that's why I'm asking questions like this. So, but yeah, Norm, thanks. Don't want to let people down. Yeah, that is the biggest one, isn't it? We call that people pleasing. Yes, and as Alex just said, I feel guilty and that they might not want other opportunities or give opportunities to me again. I completely understand that. An example for me is that I used to be an actor, which meant that I was an independent contractor. So every job I needed, and sometimes it would be feast and sometimes it would be famine. But during those feast times, I would want to take as much as I could because I was scared. I was in fear that the next job might not pop up. So actually, I guess maybe we could all sum this up is that we say yes when we should say no because of internal fear. Someone just said something. And my dad just said he's afraid of not being generous enough. If you knew my dad, that's not even possible. But I get that. I have a situation right now going to a family event in which I need to give. I don't need to, but I want to give some money to these family members. And I'm like, maybe I'm not giving enough. Maybe I should give more. So I get that. Those are great answers. So, and I hope that the comments before help with that, is actually that when we say no, that we can actually be helping everybody. The other thing for me is when I say yes, when I should say no, very often I get resentments. I get resentments, and then the people I've said yes to and the people that I want to impress or I want to make a good impression on, I start getting cranky too. I start feeling put upon, and then in the long run, sometimes I don't appear to be the person I want to be. So I should have, in the first place, just said no, and I think people would have been better off. So at least that's for me. Great. So I'm going to move on to the next part of the presentation. So I'm going to flip back to my PowerPoint. Any questions up to this point or any comments before I move on? Because once I put my PowerPoint on, I can't see you guys. I see nothing. Nothing. Okay, so I'm going to move back to my PowerPoint. Oh, maybe. Have to do that. One more time, sorry. Okay. So here's the question. How do we know when to say no? Because everything we just talked about, that I talked about, that you talked about, I think some of the times it's good to be able to take our feelings out of the equation and to be able to have some concrete things to think about when saying no. So the first thing is that figure out your priorities. So is this new commitment to you important? Does it fit with your value system? I'm surprised sometimes I'll find myself in situations and I'll be like, this isn't even important to me, or it goes against how I believe. So the question is this new commitment important to you? If it is, then do it. No, then don't do it. Pretty simple. The second thing is, how much stress will be added to my life if I say yes to this? Another thing is this stress something you can live with and not create resentments towards others or yourself? And yourself is an important part of that, at least for me, because then I'll start beating myself up. I'll start feeling bad about myself in two ways. One is I'm so busy and I feel so tired, but also the quality of my work seems to go down if I get too overcommitted. The other, so how much is guilt playing a part in your saying yes? So if you let go of the guilt and did what you really wanted to do, what would be your answer then? Now with this, I do understand sometimes that guilt can help us make the right choice in some instances. I think there's another part to this. So if you let go of the guilt and did what you really wanted to do, what would be your answer then? And the second part of that is go back to the first one. And what value are you acting upon of yourself? Or is this going against your values? So really, in this instance, it's about getting quiet, letting go of the guilt, and figuring out for yourself, is this a yes or is this a no? The last part is if it's a maybe. And it's interesting because a lot of times if it's a maybe, I'll say, sure, I'll do it. And that is probably the worst time to say yes. If it's not 100% yes for me, then I can wait. Rarely does waiting an hour or even a night to give an answer create negative consequences. But I've seen clients and myself in pure hell for answering right away and then almost immediately realizing that they should not have said yes. So in this instance, if it's a no, let me rephrase that. If it's a maybe, then for right now, it's a no. If it's a maybe, right now, it's a no. Now, who knows? Maybe in 5 minutes from now, it'll be a yes for you. But until you can say yes confidently, then just say no. Another way to do this is actually say, you know what? I have to get back to you on that. Give me a couple seconds to think about it. Point is, don't react with an automatic yes. So I think I'm going to flip back so I can see your text messages or your comments, and then questions, because we just talked about a lot of stuff there. So who has questions there or comments? Anybody? Any questions, comments, concerns? Nothing. Okay, good. I hope you can relate to this. I hope this is what you wanted. So I have a question, Mike. I keep getting texts from you. I'm not sure exactly what they mean. So I'm getting question and comment time. How do I accept this? What does this do? Can you help me? Mike?
Yeah, I'm sending, when I send a question out, everyone sees it. So then that way, if you're asking people, I can put it so they can actually see the question rather than just hearing you. So it shows up in their chat box.
Nice, but I don't see it. Okay.
It's not in your chat. It's not in your chat list?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
It's good.
Okay.
It's all good. So thanks, guys, for being patient with us as we figure this out. So one person said that it gives me space to really figure out how it feels to decipher whether it's actually yes or no. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad that helps. Yeah, it's actually, if you think about it, it's the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting usually in any situation, well, most of the time it's usually not a good thing. Responding is usually the better way to go. And responding, a simple pause and waiting can make all the difference. So thanks. Good. I'm going to go on to the last part of this. If there's no more questions, again, I can't see them when I have my PowerPoint up. So, okay, we're going to move on. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Oh, I have one more. If you say yes too often, you really lose control of your life. You turn it over to others. If you say yes, I think it's a question or is it a comment? That's interesting. I think that if you do say yes to others too often, can you lose control of your life? It can definitely feel that way. And I think for some, they do. And actually, I think sometimes in abusive situations, which is a totally different topic and not one that I'm really qualified to talk about. But I mean, in those situations, even just saying yes in those situations leads to bad things. So yes, it actually, it can make you lose control of your life. So I would agree with that statement. Okay, I'm gonna switch to my PowerPoint and go on to the next part. Okay, let me see how to do this. I turn on my screen share. I share that. How do we say no? I love this picture too. All the yeses, yes made out of no's. So here are my suggestions for you. First, use direct language, like the word no. The goal here is to avoid mixed messages like I think, or I'm pretty sure that. The more direct and simple you can be, the easier it is for you to stick to your no. Second thing, make sure you tell the truth. Avoid making up reasons. If you do, the truth usually will come out later, and that will have even bigger consequences on your relationship. Plus, when you're honest, it validates you and your choices. It's part of that self-care part. Now, let me put a caveat to that. Is I don't mean that you should be brutally honest. So if it's going to hurt someone's feelings, the simplicity of saying, at this time, I won't be able to make this commitment. That's true because you're saying no to it, so you can't make that commitment. Really what I mean by this point is, but don't go on to say, because my dad is having surgery and he might die and I need to be there and all this other stuff. I'm just making stuff up because then you have to keep track of lies and blah, blah, blah. That causes more stress. You get the point. The third thing is when you're saying no, try to be positive about it. What do I mean by that? Well, try to affirm the person or group and what they're doing. An example for me is, I really appreciate you asking me to be a part of that fundraiser. I'm excited about the opportunity for your organization to make the money to provide services for these homeless youths. Unfortunately, I will not be able to make this commitment this time. I won't be able to do it. Another time, please ask me. I do want to volunteer a later date, but this time it's a no for me. So the next one I kind of talked about, but it's talked about, I'm going to say hold your ground, okay? Now, with this, I guess what I'm trying to say is that holding your ground, but also if you need some room, it's okay to say, perhaps I need to reconsider. So let's say someone says, you say no to someone and they come up with some really good reasons. And you're like, well, I don't know. And again, maybe I should say yes, but I don't know that maybe we're talking about. Some verbiage you might use is, well, perhaps I do need to reconsider. Let me take some more time to think about that request. But the important thing here is that you're not going to give an automatic yes. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I will just say it is the weirdest thing talking to a screen in my living room with my cat staring at me. I'm just going to put that out there to you guys. But I'm glad we're here, so I'm very happy to be doing it. The last thing is black and white thinking versus gray. What do I mean by that? So many times we think it has to be a yes or a no. What else can it be? Well, maybe it's a yes and or a no and. So maybe this organization is asking me to be to come to their fundraiser, to help set up their fundraiser from 4 to 6, to be there from 6 to 10, and then help clean up. I say no to that entire commitment. But the gray is, maybe I can make it for part of the time. You know what I can do? I cannot make it from 4 until midnight. But what I can do is, I can make it from 4 to 6 to set up, and then I can stay the first hour to make sure that the event runs smoothly or gets started smoothly. And then you can hand it back to them. Would that be okay? And you can kind of negotiate. This way, I think that the last person that wrote a comment, that feeling of losing control, and for me, then I start to feel resentful. Well, if I can gain some of that control back by kind of negotiating the terms that I feel comfortable with. And again, it's important for you to feel comfortable with the yes. If you don't, then that's when resentments and the like can come to be. So I think at this point, I want to kind of, I want to turn it back over to you guys. So I need to stop sharing this. So we're going to go to talking and let me go back. Okay, so one last thing I think that we need to kind of talk about. First of all, does anyone have questions? Questions, comments, anything like that? I want to make sure I give everyone a chance to talk. So, anybody? 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 Okay, I'm going to continue, but please write more comments because I'm watching them. Mike is too. He'll stop me if I do not see them. But one last thing I think we need to think about is that when you say no, people may be disappointed in you. And that is okay. That is okay if people are disappointed in you. Especially if you're used to saying yes a lot and people are used to you saying yes. Then when you say no, people might be disappointed. And why are they disappointed? Well, because they want you to say yes. They have invested interest. By you saying yes helps them. So again, in these situations, you kind of have to balance it with your values. You know, so maybe, I mean, an example is that I'll use my parents for an example. Is that versus maybe one of my other friends. One of my friends asked me to go shopping, and my friends will tell you if I don't want to shop, I will say no. I don't want to do it. If my parents ask me to go shopping, I don't want to go. But the value of helping them, or the value of my parents and my love for my parents and my gratitude for my parents, that wins over not wanting to do it. So I say yes. But I don't have resentments because I have actually looked at it. I have kind of judged it for myself and thought, you know what? My parents are more important to me. So yes, it's not a big deal. I will go shop. Okay. Now to my friends, I say no. Some of them will be disappointed. I have one who gets really disappointed in me. And that's okay. He gets to be disappointed. So someone just put in a chat. So let me go read this real quick. So saying yes all the time. You're right, Amy. Saying yes all the time has the potential to cause people to take you for granted. I wish we could talk because I would ask you to expand on that more. I agree with that. I can say it from my point of view. They take you for granted. And then when you say no, it's even a bigger deal because they have expectations. I'm sure everybody has heard the saying, expectations are premeditated resentments. So if people are expecting you to say yes, then when you say no, it's a double whammy because you're not doing what they want and they really expected you to do it. So someone wrote a comment. So how do I feel when somebody tells me no? Well, of course I get angry. I'm kidding. It's interesting. It depends on my buy-in to what I'm asking or my attachment to what I'm asking and the my belief that if this person does not do it, then it's going to cause chaos in my life or whatever. I've gotten pretty good at, because I am a manager, so a lot of times, I'll go ask someone to do something and they have their workload's too big. So I have to figure out another way to do it. So when someone says no to me, I automatically go into problem solving. But I will admit, though, that I can get irritated, especially depends on if it's a close friend or if it's someone I think should say yes. And this is where it goes back to the reaction versus the responding. My reaction, which is in my head, I'll be like, oh, but then my response is, and I know that they do, if it's one of my friends, I know they love me, and I'm sure that it's really important that they say no to me. So, but I'll admit that I do have that point of saying, but that does not mean they should say yes to me at all. I get to have my own reactions. And what an opportunity for when someone says no to me, for me to process that, feel my feelings, and to take the next step. So I hope that answered your thought and your question. So thanks. Anybody else? Anybody else have thoughts, questions? I have some things that people wrote me, emailed me. I just want to make sure I've covered everything. Anything else? Does anybody need something they're not getting from the webinar? Is there a question you came with and we've not addressed it? I've gone through most of my material and I'm going to just start asking questions.
I can run a poll for us, Bobby.
Okay. Does anybody have okay.
Do you see it?
I don't see a poll. Oh, wait a minute. If I go to polls. I love it. So if you go to your poll, if everyone goes to polls, maybe I just had to tap poll, but disappointing someone seems to be the #1 thing of why people, the hardest part about saying no. I agree. Okay. So I'm going to start reading some questions. Oh, we see it. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. So Alex, they see it, the poll. Great. Thanks, guys. Thank you for piloting all of this with us. We really appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to answer some questions here. I actually going to put them out to the group and then I'll give my thoughts, but I actually want to hear your thoughts. In these webinars and presentations, I learn as much or more than participants. So first question I had was, is it harder for some people to say no? For example, a student when a teacher requests something, a younger sibling, or interesting, a female victim of domestic violence. So all of these, I think all three, have to do with power. And that's an interesting conversation. And yes, power does play into saying yes versus saying no and the whole safety of it. So I think we've been talking about the fear of disappointing someone or the like. But I think that when our safety comes into question, especially if it's violence or something like that, of course it's really hard to say no, and I'm not even sure I would tell someone to say no in that situation. I think to say yes and get the heck out of there as soon as possible, or whatever the situation is. I'm not making general comments or suggestions on that, but I think that's really important too when we're dealing with people. Especially example for me, and when I coach other leaders, that my management team. I'm part of the management team, but my staff will say to me yes when really they should say no, but I'm the manager, I'm the boss. So there's a lot of times when I say to them, can you please explain to me what your workload is, and make sure that they are not overwhelming themselves. One thing I really value in management is making sure that the staff is balanced and are happy, because it makes my life a lot easier. So I'd rather someone say no to me and then give the task to someone who can do it, who has time. But yes. It's interesting. Someone said, aren't there moral implications in the inability to say no? For example, peer pressure to steal, bullying. And I would say, yes, there are moral implications to not being able to say no. I think there are many people who've gotten, good people who've gotten into trouble by their inability to say no. And then when I was young, I was reminded by my parents that even if I was pressured, I should say no. Which I didn't. So I said yes to a lot of things I should have said no to. But you live and learn, right? But yeah, so it's important to also, I guess, a really good point to this is that when we're in situations and we feel pressured to say yes, we should check in and say, why do we feel pressured? Is it ourselves pressuring us, or is someone outside of us actually putting pressure on us? And is this a situation where we need to go get help from someone? Say if say my boss was giving me pressure to do something, was inappropriate pressure, maybe I need to go to HR and talk to them. So that's really good point. We need to kind of check in with ourselves and find out what we're feeling and also what we're thinking. So good. So I want to do one more. This is an interesting one. I think we already talked about this, but driven by guilt. So the person, I'm not sure if this is a real situation or not, but this could be a friend, but the person at the checkout counter asks you if you can donate for a cause. You've already given all you can afford that week, and you're not sure that the cause is one you would have chosen. How can you decline without looking like you have no empathy for others in need? Good question. So it's interesting. There's two things to this. I think one is that, actually three things I would say. I think we talked about the no with kindness or the no with positivity. So saying to the person, if it is a good, whatever the truth is, but maybe in this instance, while that looks like a really good cause, I'm not donating, or I've already donated for this week to the cause of my choosing, but I wish you the best of luck. So that would be one thing. Two is to also realize that what other people think of you is not your business. So, if they think that, then they can think that. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Especially whoever wrote this question to me, it sounds like you already donate to places. So the idea that you don't, that you're selfish, or that you don't have empathy for others in need, that doesn't seem like that's true. So as long as you know that, then that's a good thing. I had one other thing to say about this is that, yeah, that's what I had to say about it. Wow, I'm sure it will come to me. So how can we decline without looking like we have no empathy or for others in need? Well, those are my two answers. I had one other, but I guess that I wasn't supposed to say it. So anyway, so any questions at this point? And then I have one final question. So any questions from you regarding this? Anything that you want to talk about? Anything this is kind of brought up? Anything else? Remember, you can use the text box and then just hit enter. So I'll give you about 3 or 4 more seconds. Anybody else? Okay. So I have one final question here that was on this sheet. And the question was, suppose someone wants to say no less often. What's the advice on how to begin? And that's kind of why we're all here, right? How do we start this process? So I'm not expecting you to become experts at saying no, especially like tomorrow, because I think it's something I've known about for a long time, and I'm still working on it. There's a couple of things to start, okay? One is to be able to check in with yourself. So when you do say yes, when you should say no, check in with yourself. For me, it's kind of a sandpaper effect, maybe resentment or fear, like, oh, why did I just do that? And that's really good to hear. I say hear in your head. Because then you start to realize more often, like then you become able to recognize that feeling quicker. Then you won't say no, or you won't say yes. You might say no, or you might say, let me get back to you. And that's my second thing for this week, is that just for this week, why don't we not say yes right away? Even if it is a concrete yes, just say, you know what? Give me a couple of seconds to think about that. So you get practice at using this pause button before reacting, okay? So even if it's, if my boss says, hey, can you get me those papers? Yeah, give me a second, Now that I'm thinking about that example, I'm gonna say yes to my boss, so I probably will say yes. But if it's a big thing, as much as you can, practice saying, you know what, give me a second, or let me get back to you on that, and just pausing. Again, what we're practicing is getting out of that reactionary place and getting into responding. Because in the responding place, all of the things that I just talked about, that's when you have access to this stuff. In reactions, it's fight or flight. So in fight or flight, we have a fear of disappointing people or not looking good or whatever it may be. So we automatically go, yes. So what we want to do is get to that response place where we say, oh no, I'm not going to impress someone. And I really don't have time to do that. And if I say no to this, someone else will be able to say yes to it. And then you can give your answer. Someone just, my dad said, maybe 2-year-olds could teach us how to say no. I love that. That is true. 2-year-olds are really good at that. I can't compete with that. But, so if all else fails, just become a 2-year-old and say no, and it'll work. Anyway, so that is the end of this webinar, unless there's more questions. So are there more questions, comments? Hopefully this was useful to you. If something was not addressed and you feel a little shy about putting it in a chat, definitely feel free to email me. And I'm going to put my contact information. So just to let you know that this presentation, in the series of 3, but this one was based on my book, Create the Life of Your Dreams, which you can buy at Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. Or if you're in Chicago, you can get it at Unabridged Bookstore. So that's definitely, please buy it. If you like this, you'll like that, because it's directly from that. And next week, I'm doing Accentuate the Positive to Eliminate the Negative, with the idea that with self-change, a lot of times we beat ourselves up, that we think if we just fix those things that are wrong with us, we'll be okay. As coaches, a lot of times we work with people on their strengths. And by doing this, it actually eliminates their weaknesses or lessens the effect that their weaknesses have on their lives. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. Someone just popped in. Hi, Hank. He said, sorry I'm late. It's all good. So the webinar is next week, this time, 8 p.m. Central. I'll be here. Mike will be here. And we'll be doing the same format. So let me make sure that I've remembered everything. And again, let me tell you my website. It is www.bobkisercoaching.com. Google me, it'll come up. Feel free to email me, all that kind of good stuff. And I think Mike just put it in the chat. So there's my website. Last chance for questions. Any questions? Any questions? So I have one final question, and then we're done. So I want you to type in the one thing you're going to practice this week to become better at saying no. So go ahead and type it in. Everyone type one thing. For me, it's the pause button. I'm going to practice what I preach and say, you know what, let me get back to you on that. Or give me a couple seconds to think about that. So what are you going to practice this week? What are you going to practice? So take time to think before I say yes all the time. I love it. Except to me, Mike. You say yes to me all the time. Okay. Alex, love it. Taking 10 seconds before responding. I love that. I love that. Good. Make my default position maybe rather than yes. Oh, I love that. Good. Good, good, good. Anybody else want to pop in? Going. Okay. Again, you can email me. I love emails when we're talking about all this stuff. So definitely feel free to email me. I can answer any questions there. And that's it. So have a great night. Thanks for attending, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Next week, 8 p.m. next time. Okay. Bye, everybody.